scrappy people. Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with Sketchy Sunday number 22. I believe it's 22. This is the sketch right here. I'm super excited to play with this sketch. I really loved it when I was designing it, so I'm really excited to play with it. So I do need to adapt it for a non-square page, which I'm going to do by adding another row, making everything smaller, of course. This is the photo I'm going to be using today, and it is of us on a hike to a waterfall. So I'm going to be using the summer camp collection, which is perfect for this page. I'm super excited to dig into both. So let's get started. All right, so before we start anything, we need to lay down the mixed media in the background. I decided not to splatter this time. Instead, I'm going to use the packaging technique and just make some nice gray washes behind where they're supposed to be on the sketch. So up here in this corner, off to the edge over here, over here, yes, over here, and then down at the bottom too. I'm just loosely doing this. It doesn't really matter to me where the splotches are. I just want them back there for contrast. So I'm going to use the patterned cards and I'm going to cut out a bunch of squares. And the squares end up being, for this size, I believe 1 3/8 or maybe 1 1/4. They're very small squares. And so I think it's 3/8, 1 3/8. And so the pattern cards were perfect for these pages, or for these squares. And I'm going to sort of just start putting these squares down, trying to figure out where I want them to go, making sure that the colors are divided up nicely. There will be some stacking of patterns on top of each other because the sketch has tags, and it has folded corners on some of these squares, and it has double squares on some of them. So I'm keeping that in mind as I sort of rearrange these squares, trying to figure out where they're going to go. So I'm going to spare you the portion of this process that is going to include gluing these all down once I have them sorted where I want them to go, because they're just going to go right back where they are right now. Some of these squares are going to be tilted too. The sketch is really fun in that way. Yes, we have like a base grid here with a bunch of the same size squares and the photo that is like 2 squares wide, right? But the way that everything is like cockeyed and folded and tagged and all of that makes the base composition of this layout really fun, and also like easy to work with, because there's so much going on with all of these paper patterns to start with that you really don't have to embellish too much unless you want to. And now you know that I love to embellish, so of course I am going to go buck wild, but you don't have to. So I'm making the tags just by snipping off a corner, using the corner to snip off the other corner so that they're the same. Then I'm going to use my hole punch to punch the center. Then I use the first tag to create a template for the rest of the tags. Now I can glue them all down. And then I need to snip the corners. So because these are single-sided papers, a way to get like sort of a faux corner fold with pattern on the background is I'm going to actually snip the corners of the squares that need folded corners. So I'm just going to cut it off, and then I'm going to use that corner as a template to cut a little snippet of this excess pattern paper that I have to match. So I'm just going to put it in the corner here, and I'm going to snip it off, and then I can just rotate it and put it down along the edge of the snipped corner, and it looks like a folded corner. So because these folded corners are so small, I'm actually going to use a stapler to make them stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to snip this corner. I'm going to show you one more time. Snip this corner, pick a pattern that I want to use. I'm going to go with this black and white because I think it'll be good contrast. And then just stick it down along the edge. So now I'm going to get out my stapler, and I'm going to put staples, like sort of perpendicular to the fold. So these are going to be vertical. This one's going to be horizontal. This one up here will be vertical. I'm doing 2 staples just so it stands out a little bit more. And then we've got horizontal over here. So it just adds a little bit of interest, a little bit of fun to the page. So now I've snipped my page in half. I'm gonna add my holes before I go anywhere else, and now I can start embellishing. So I have a bunch of really fun titles in this collection that I'm going to use for the word bits that are on the sketch. And I swear I designed this sketch before I designed this collection, but how perfectly did that work out? I snipped off the arrow portion of this take a hike because I didn't want it to point off of the edge of the page. So I'm going to do explore, take a hike, nature. I think I'm going to do go outside now. I think I'm going to do sunshine. I'm not sure. Fresh air maybe. Unplug. That's what it was. I knew it wasn't right. Unplug, fresh air. I think it's funny to have the unplug up there with a photo of me holding my phone, but there was no service. I was just using my phone as a camera, so it makes sense. Unplug, fresh air. And then the sketch calls for another title down here on the bottom where the journaling is, but because there's not a lot of room when I change the size of this sketch, I just decided instead to use these little squares that are from the sticker sheet and fill in some of the holes just for some added interest. I was not wearing hiking shoes. I do not own hiking boots because I don't hike on trails that need hiking boots, but you know, it is a motif for hiking, so it works. I'm going to add these feathers in as well because I think that they do a really great job of breaking up the grid design of this page. I always like to what I call break the grid. So if I create a layout with a big grid, you know, sketch or something like that that looks like it's like really blocky, I like to do what I call breaking the grid, which is expanding or not expanding, but like bridging the gap between the grid spaces with embellishment. So I'm doing that with the feathers, namely. I also did it with the titles on the sketch originally, and I'm going to do it with some flowers too. I'm just building up some areas of interest on this page. So I'm going to do some flowers over here. I left room for or above my journaling for a title, so I'm going to add yet another title to this, but it's going to be it's going to contrast the word bits and titles that are already on there because I'm going to use letter stickers instead, so it won't be quite the same. After I get all this stuck down, of course. Do one more flower here. Now I'm going to get out my letter stickers because you can see it's just too repetitive with this wild or Rome or whatever. So I got out my faux wood veneer ones and then these from Cocoa Daisy, and it says so happy. I need to rearrange a little bit and move that flower over because I didn't like the way that it was looking with this pause and look up. So I'm going to move this pause and look up, and I'm going to aim the flower out a little bit more from my photo. And instead of putting that pause and look up back right there, I'm going to add it to this green square down here because that's where a title was supposed to go anyway. And then I'm going to take a little arrow and I'm going to point at so. I felt like this spread needed a little bit more orange than what was represented in the papers that I chose. So I'm doing that with, you know, that title up there, the feather. I'm just making sure I'm adding in strategic bits of orange here and there. So this is about it for this. I'm going to add in these pine trees just because I like them and I wanted to. And then I'm going to also pull in some of these enamel dots that I have on the side. And I really like the colors and the flatness of the enamel dots that you can see over there in the corner, the orange and green ones. I really like the way that they interplay with this layout. So I'm just going to add in some clusters of these flat enamel dots. I love the not shiny enamel dots. I wish we had more of these coming around. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Traci and Reed. I'd love to see you over there as well. You can download this sketch and see more examples using it from the team via the link in the description box. All right, thank you.